group that has been a part of nostalgia lore from almost the get go. Brockhampton, and I guess this is the Brockhampton eulogy, right?
Yes. Yes, it is. Brockhampton is ending. Brockhampton is saying goodbye. And just right off the jump, we're going to review both of the new Brockhampton albums, the two final albums in very Brockhampton fashion. We're going to review the family, and we're also going to review TM. Check the description for the link to whatever album review you're not listening to or watching right now. And also check the link for our Brockhampton album rankings that we did in 2021 after Roadrunner came out. We reviewed and ranked their first six records, and now they have their seventh and eighth albums out, and we'll talk about them now. Yeah, man, Brockhampton, it's what a whirlwind, huh? To drop 8 albums in a 5-year stretch. Just an incredibly prolific run with many ups and many downs in the public eye. And, they flirted with and walked back on breaking up and ending before, but I don't know how you could listen to the family and see how they were moving the past weekend and not believe them. Like, this was a cathartic breakup album from the group, the family was. And, yeah, I definitely think they're done.
Yeah, I think they're done. How are you feeling about it? 'Cause you've been riding with them almost from the jump, right?
That's right. Yeah, I picked up somewhere in 2017 with Saturation Trilogy was coming out. I saw them perform in early 2018, which was awesome. Um, I remember exactly where I was when Amir was kicked out of the group. I was
Mm.
in Venice, Italy, and I checked my phone, and I remember sitting down on a bench in this little ass plaza, and I was like, "What the fuck? Amir's gone." We talked about that when that happened. We don't have to get into that now. But yeah, no, definitely a huge fan of the group, and again, we did a whole rankings on them because I think they're the most exciting rap group of the last 5 years, without question. And a big part of that has been how prolific they are, but also how wide ranging of genres they've dabbled in as a musical group, and also how they really platformed their own voices and kind of built people up. Artists like Joba really came into their own in the back half of the Brockhampton run, for example. And to hear the family before we knew TM was coming out, to hear the family and realize that it's a Kevin Abstract solo affair vocally, be like, huh, wow, man, they're really on some bad terms, aren't they? Because that's how I felt listening to it.
Mhm.
Because Kevin's really letting it fly, spilling some tea, telling you how he felt about a lot of different stuff that happened because a lot of things happened with them. And then you hear that last track and he's really congratulatory and grateful for all his guys and shouts everyone out by name. And the next thing you know, they're releasing another album. TM stands for The Mountain, and you find out that that's like a traditional Brockhampton album with everyone in the mix vocally. And turns out that was resurrected from 2021 recording sessions and almost makes good on the promises Brockhampton often made but never actually delivered on, which was trying to save some of their past unreleased albums like Puppy and Team Effort. So to hear TM be just like that's just another Brockhampton record. Look, there it is
Mhm.
for you. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you to the fans type thing. And then also contrast that with the family and really having Kevin just bare his soul out and just let go of everything he's been holding on to the past few years. It's quite the juxtaposition, and they both are really, I think, serving like two different masters and with the intent, but also how incredibly Brockhampton to release a album after the final album came out.
Right. Yeah. Of course, because they had to stoke the flames that they're never actually done. I've seen people saying that, this isn't it. People are in denial for sure. I think my main takeaway was exactly what you said. Like, oh, they must not be on great terms. If we're getting this like solo Kevin album out first, and then listening to that and TM back to back, it's like I kind of just like the Kevin album. Like I thought TM had some okay moments, but like the Kevin album was so much more in the lane of music that I like, and felt a bit more jubilant. And I think
Mhm.
emotionally was what I was hoping to get. The Mountain
Yes.
feels a bit I don't know. It feels exactly like you said. Like they revived some tracks that maybe they weren't planning on releasing initially, or were planning on going back to, and it just didn't feel as final. So I kind of wish
That's
they almost did it
yeah.
in exact or opposite order.
I completely agree. I think The Family definitely feels like an ending. You know, a
Yeah.
song or an album with a song called The Ending would make sense, right? But I mean, you listen to the ending, you listen to the final track, Brockhampton. That gives, I think, a Brockhampton fan a lot of closure hearing a song like Brockhampton, right?
Hmm.
Where Kevin really opens up about stuff that happened,
Yep.
explaining how the boys really drifted apart over money and creative differences. Not surprising reasons, of course, but you actually hear it from the source, you know?
Hmm.
Like him and Jabari had a disagreement and the relationship changed. Flash forward, did they just perform 2 days ago their final show at the Fonda Theater on Hollywood Boulevard? They did. They were all there. They all seem to be vibing, but it's clear from these songs on the
Hmm.
family that things really did change. And that's why, like, I'm not necessarily yearning for them to stick together because it clearly just isn't like a tenable thing from a creative side of things, even if they're all cordial and kind of grateful for the run they had together, right?
Right.
Like the next few days, they're doing a I Miss the Band Already radio show on the AMP app from Amazon. And that's including multiple people of the group. Joe tweeted it out as well as Kevin. Like they all seem to be like cordial and cool, but it also seems like they're quite happy to start doing their own things, right?
Hmm.
And I mean, to me, like hearing Kevin speak on how he like reconnected with Amir and then had to grapple with Dom's reaction to that because Dom had a very specific reason for that wanting nothing to do with Amir anymore. Like hearing something like that, you know, and Kevin basically like being like, "Yeah, I'm like a complicated guy, and I'm certainly not blameless in all of this." Like to hear, I think that level of candor, that frankness,
Hmm.
it just goes, I think, a long way with the fans. I would not recommend either of these records, but especially The Family, to anyone who is not intimately familiar with the Brockhampton story. Like, clearly, you should be starting way earlier if you just actually want to
Yeah.
enjoy the music and understand what's going on. This is very in the weeds for the Brockhampton listener.
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, uh, there's even just like references to like San Marcos and stuff like that. And if you're just
Mhm.
listening, you're like, what the hell are you talking about? I think something like you can't, I didn't know that you couldn't feel free until you took the blue paint off or something like that. That's a line that you just will not understand unless you know that saturation one, two, and three happened, and that it was
Yep.
like this amazing moment for the band, but I think also something that made them feel a bit like pigeonholed creatively. And I think also
Mhm.
it probably led to a lot of these conflicts because their star just started to rise so quickly.
I mean,
Um,
and I think what's great about The Family, too, is Kevin's able to, I think, weave in like meaningful lyricism about this topic while also making a good track. And I say look no further than Gold Teeth, where
oh
Kevin's
yeah,
flow is amazing. Do we see each other? Hardly. Should we mate together? Godly.
yeah,
And then what's he say? Like he basically says that they signed to RCA for too many records. It's like, did we something whatever? Probably, you know, but however he says it. Like I was
mhm.
like, wow, not only does this song bang, but you really saying some shit right now.
Yeah, no, completely. I mean, I thought this whole thing was really great, but I think one of the songs that I really appreciated the way he talked about things, and I think this is where you get a lot of the stuff with Amir. I think it's this song, and now I'm doubting myself. It's 37. I
Hmm.
really liked that
Yeah,
track a
the
lot.
vocal effects were cool.
Yeah, and I what I liked is like they like just they like brought back the sonics and they just put Kevin's like vocals right at the forefront. He sounds so crisp and confident,
Hmm.
and I just really loved that as like a switch up because I mean this is a really produced album, which is
Yeah,
something that's common for Brockhampton. They do a lot of splicing, they put in a lot of vocal effects and a lot of sounds, and it's part of why you love them. But this is a scaled back one where it's just him talking and just kind of spilling the tea. Pretty great. I thought that
totally.
was one that stood out to me. A couple other tracks I liked. I liked the beginning and the end of the album is very like celebratory sounding. Like at the beginning you
Mhm.
get "Take It Back," which feels like a throwback, like Kanye or like
Yes,
Chance
that
record.
sample very reminiscent, isn't it?
Yeah,
How
and
could
then
you
you
not
have
love it though?
exactly. And then you have RZA, the next song, and
RZA.
that also sounds yeah, RZA, which also sounds just completely celebratory,
Yeah.
right? So you have those 2 back to back.
Ian, why don't you keep the band back together? I was like, oh man, they're getting right into it right away.
I know, I know. And then at the end, like you said, you get a couple of tracks in a row. I thought "The Family" was one that's really like
Hmm.
stood out to me, but then you get the ending and Brockhampton back to back, and it's like, fuck, like
Yeah,
this is so fucking good. This is exactly why people loved like Chance or Kanye when they were making stuff like this because this kind of music just fucking bangs, and Kevin can do this, man.
I know.
Like,
Um, the ending, the Willie Hutch "Let Me Be the One"
ah,
soul sample is incredible.
dude, one of the best samples I've heard since like I don't even know. Like
Yeah,
I
um,
can't even think of it. Pablo maybe?
like people know soul sampling in hip hop is tremendous when done
Mhm,
well. Obviously, Kanye really helped pioneer this, or at least really popularize it. And this is like right up there with the appeal of that sort of thing, you know. And then meanwhile, Kevin actually raps and his lyricism, he's like telling a really personal story about how he's trying to live his life and not
mhm,
have other people put expectations on him. And like that sample, it's just so moving, so affecting. Especially if you really had listened to the rest of the album and know everything that's been weighing on Kevin, you know? It's like, oh man, really love that one. And then to immediately hear the final track, Brockhampton, as we said, that really to me, I was like, I'm listening to it, I was like, man, like it's making me a little sad. I'm not gonna lie. Like just
mhm.
hearing where things went wrong. You kind of knew it already. You understood it, but like to really hear him just saying, it's like, man, I really just hope everyone can just move on and be happy with their careers because that one's a bit tough to listen to. Not gonna lie. But on the other hand, like I said before, a song like Gold Teeth, where you can bring this lyricism out into a song in a fun way. How about all that? You know,
Mhm.
blowing up ain't all that. You know, really,
Yeah.
they really he's really interrogating, I think, fame and how their lives and their careers change at different parts in the Brockhampton arc. You know, you get a little barefaced vocals on the family, but for the most, that's like I think the only moment where it's not Kevin. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, man. Also on the final track too, Brockhampton obviously he speaks a lot about his collaborators, his boys in the band, and what happened. But he also kind of speaks on how like what they did without having radio hits and TikTok hits and not being on
Mhm.
playlists and stuff. Like it's I think quite wide ranging in the commentary and the recap, so it were, of what had happened. You know, so yeah, I really enjoyed the family and I think it does fitting. Obviously, it feels fitting. Obviously, as a final work, even if we didn't get everyone else in the group. I think that's actually the most surprising thing about it is how good it feels as a grace note for Brockhampton, despite Kevin being the only vocalist. Like you wouldn't have
Right.
expected that. You would have thought this would have came off as super bitter and half-assed. And what's he say? The label needs 35 minutes of new music. Like you would have thought it
Mhm.
sounded like that, but it doesn't come across that way. And
Right.
then we'll get into TM now, but like the TM is a more of like, hey man, this is what it used to be like, and here you go. So, do you have any other thoughts on the family before we switch to TM?
Yeah, just 2 things. So or I guess maybe 3. So boy band kinda starts with, like, I don't know who's talking, but someone is saying, like, "That boy band shit, that's, like, the only kind of shit that Brockhampton could pull off," and, like, it's true, like, they were just such a unique, like, group that they could say that shit and kind of make people believe it and make it feel real to them in a sense, which I really appreciated.
Best boy band since One Direction.
Yeah, one of the best lines from them of all time. Big Pussy, the 4th track, I really liked for multiple reasons. It had a feeling like when you see people go into these like morning shows and do freestyles, and like the beat just kind of keeps switching, going in different directions. And they just glide off of it. And of course, it starts off with this like jazz sample at the beginning, so you think it's gonna be some like I don't know Kendrick shit, or something like that. And then he's like, "Shut your bitch ass up." And it just flips and he just starts going. I just really loved that moment. Just thought it was great. You already said all that. But I mean, come on, having an all that like sample and like using that as the beat to the song. Are you kidding me? Like
Yeah,
that's
TLC in there.
incredible. And then also, any way you want me. That's just something that only like Brockhampton can do, and that's like feels so specific to them as like just this band, this group that became more than just a hip hop band, right? They really like push themselves sonically and stylistically, and even if I don't love Any Way You Want Me, like I think it's still interesting that they did like this almost like old school like 60s 70s like pop sound in their
Mhm.
final album. Like good for them. I'm glad that they tried it.